This is the Brain, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network. Yes!
Today on episode 88 of the Cinema Geeks,
we discuss why it might be time to get excited about the next Predator film.
We react to who could possibly be in the next Tomb Raider.
And in our main attraction, we give you an in-depth look at Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice.
All that and more coming up on episode 88 with the Cinema Geeks.
I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away. No matter where you go, you know you're not alone. I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away.
That's right, it's another episode of the Cinema Geeks, and as you heard in the intro, we have three Cinema Geeks with us today. I am one of them, Optimus Solo. Joining me is Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. And Amanda Hard Candy Mandy. Hello.
Yo.
Yo, she says. Coming at you a little bit later than normally planned, but hey, we wanted to have time to read every other review that's been written on Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, to take it all in, the backlash, the defense, the commentary about it, and then give you our in-depth look at that. So it's not late to the party, it's just more educated about the party.
We wanted DC and Marvel both to pay us as much money as possible to see who ended up paying us more. That's the side we would come on, I guess. Is what.
Exactly, pretty much. But before we can get to that, we're going to get into a couple quick news stories like we normally do. As we teased in the opening, some news and rumors on the front of the Predator film, which we've teased a little bit for quite a few months now, actually. But basically, there was a story that came out that kind of shed a little bit more light on what kind of tone this one might have and what we could expect possibly for the next Predator film. And it basically came through an article where Shane Black discussed how Fox was able to convince him to be a part of this new Predator film. For those of you that don't know, Shane Black obviously has done a lot of writing on different films. He also directed Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Iron Man 3, and is in line now to do this next Predator film. Dan, I think for those people that have followed the Alien franchise, but more specifically the Predator franchise, I mean, we had those first couple films that were, big in the 80s, big blockbuster films, and then it kind of spun off into the way that a lot of films do once you get to the third, fourth, fifth, or whatever installment, where they become less and less glitz and glamour, a lot less money behind them, eventually go the route of direct-to-video or on-demand, that type of thing. And it seems like they're really kind of putting their time into this next Predator film. It's not going to be just installment number, whatever number we're on. It's going to seem to be something that they actually put a little money and time behind, according to this article at least. And that's one reason why Shane Black at first was not keen on doing this project, was because he didn't want to do just another. He's kind of seen the track record of the last few, the Alien versus Predator and all those types of films, and wasn't really interested in it until they kind of told him that they were going to put the money behind it, they were going to put the people behind it, and let this be as big scale as possible. What do you think about this as far as how it bodes for the next Predator film, which is slated to open March 2nd, 2018?
Well, it's weird because I like Shane Black, but his style doesn't necessarily. I don't know. I don't think of him and Predator existing in the same world. This is a guy who did Lethal Weapon, like we mentioned, Iron Man 3, and he's since he seems most comfortable in like the crime genre, so seems not that he is incapable of doing anything else, but that's the only kind of thing that comes to my mind. It's like, is his style really going to translate well? Because he's definitely known for his more comedic angle, the way he can incorporate and play with different tropes of genre. I don't know for his complete filmography, so if he did something similar, I could be mistaken. But I'm one of the weird people, maybe I did kind of like Predators. Like, that one was decent. It wasn't I wouldn't put it up there with the first one, but it had its moments. But I think it's good that they're actually going out and getting a known director, a known commodity, not just, I think the other guy, the guy who directed the last Predators, was just a friend of Robert Rodriguez or something like that. So
right.
I'm glad they're actually at least taking time and getting someone who can at least provide at least has a background that is pretty strong for the most part. So
right.
that has me interested.
And Amanda, they also mentioned in the article that with Deadpool coming out this year, obviously, and kind of at least for some people saying, hey, putting something with an R rating on it's not necessarily going to be the end of things, and it can be successful. Do you think this Predator version will be able to revitalize the brand, or what's your level of excitement? You like Shane Black, you like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and some of the other stuff you've seen from Shane Black. Do you think it's a good match for him in the next Predator film?
I did enjoy some of his other work. I think that'll be interesting to see where this new Predator movie goes. I'm all in already, so I'm just hoping
you don't
that...
need anything to get you excited for it.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that he can put out a decent film here and get people really excited about it.
All right, so we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. We only have a couple of years to wait for that one. And another movie-related news here, we teased in the opener as far as the next Tomb Raider film, and there's a lot of articles, Dan, that have been circulating about the possibility of the next Tomb Raider being helmed by none other than Daisy Ridley from Star Wars The Force Awakens. What are your thoughts on another Tomb Raider and Daisy Ridley possibly being involved in that? It's more so that she said that she wants to do it. I don't know if anybody's actually approached her, but she's been very outspoken about being interested in playing that character.
Well, I mean, that way we get at least add some more to our video game marathon that we're doing, so we got that going for us. I could kind of see it. I mean, it's legitimately the only thing I know her from, like most people, is Star Wars, and I thought she was great in that, so... as often happens, you get the person who breaks through with a movie, and then they get attached to other things. And I do think Tomb Raider could be a good movie. I have not seen the actual Terminator films, so I don't know how great a job Angelina Jolie did with those, or if they're worth revisiting. I mean, and I know I guess the newer games have more of a story. I don't know. Like, I have never really played Tomb Raider, but I'm all for seeing more Daisy Ridley and other things, so it'd be why not? Go for it.
I mean, I don't know if you've played more Tomb Raider than the rest of us, but I know you've seen those films and are more familiar with Angelina Jolie in that role. Do you think that's something that Daisy Ridley could pull off in a different version of that character, or not the right choice?
Yeah, maybe. It's definitely going to be a different feel than maybe what Angelina Jolie brought. Like, she kind of had that raw, exotic, sex appeal kind of thing, where I think Daisy Ridley is a little bit more on the awkward kind of side of things. I did play some Tomb Raider on the PC back in the day, and I've seen all the movies. I really enjoy the Angelina Jolie ones, but they do have kind of a high cheesy factor, so maybe if they put a little serious touch on it, she could be, a more serious Lara Croft, but she doesn't have the sex appeal. That's kind of her thing, too.
All right, and I know nothing about them. So I will be exposed to them at some point over the course of our video game series, so we'll have to wait, and I'll hold my thoughts until then. A couple other news stories. We pushed our record of this episode a few days to accommodate for scheduling, and in the meantime, a few other news stories came out that I wanted to throw at you guys, see what you think. News about a Saw reboot. So rebooting the Saw, not just another Saw film, but a reboot. And the article is stating that Jigsaw will be played by Bob Saget.
Was this released on April 1st by any chance?
I hope that's a joke, but I didn't look into any April Fool's hijinks, so maybe it is, maybe it's not. But that was a news story that came out. If that was legit, Dan, does that mean anything for the Saw franchise, or has it been played out regardless?
I think it's been played out to begin with. Bob Saget, I mean, he's a creepy dude, so he's got that going for him. I could actually see him doing a serial killer pretty well. I just don't necessarily know if we need another horror reboot. I feel like, geez, I mean, it's not that surprising, but it's like, come on now. Like, I don't even know how. I liked the first Saw and some of the Saws, but
Circular Saw.
Seesaw was really good. But no, I don't know. It just seems weird. I would say no. Let's not.
Amanda, do you echo that, or are you all about Bob Saget in the Saw universe?
I don't even know. I don't think that people would take it as seriously. I think they would see it just as some kind of way to poke fun at it. I think that it would definitely delegitimize the franchise.
Maybe it's an April Fool's joke and they got me. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Another news story coming out about another sequel, but not in any type of franchise film, not a horror film, not a comic book film, not a science fiction film, but one of the films that was touted very highly by a lot of people in 2015. And that news story is that there will be a Sicario 2. And it will bring back Emily Blunt, Josh Brolin, and Benicio del Toro. No word yet on if Denis Villeneuve will be involved or not. Amanda, Sicario 2, needed or not?
I think that maybe it wasn't needed, but it would be cool to go back in that world. I feel like the way it ended really kind of did the whole movie justice. I liked how it ended. But it would be cool to get back in that world again and see what moves forward from where they left off.
Dan, agree or disagree?
I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. I never, at the end of that film, thought I could go for a sequel. If Denis Villeneuve, I can't say that name, I apologize, is coming back, I would be probably more for it. I do think there's probably more story there, and there's a lot you can delve into further because of what the cartel there's, or right. Just that there's a lot to. I don't think it would be a stretch to can continue that story, and I think even the Emily Blunt character, there's a lot more that can be said for her. So I wouldn't be against it, but it'd all be based upon who they're getting to direct, because that'd be my fear that he wouldn't be coming back. And I'm really surprised by it. The bottom line, though, it seems.
Yeah, I saw the article pop up, and I'm like, what? I'm like, that seems odd. But like a sequel to Spotlight, but it's still happening.
That's a whole movie that don't need sequels for any reason.
But yeah, let's get into a little bit more in the realm of geeky related news with one last final news story. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Arya Stark. I can never say her name right. Maisie Williams, but Arya Stark from Game of Thrones has been cast in the New Mutants, an X-Men. I believe that's a film. I don't think that's an actual series. I think that's going to be a new film coming out as Wolfsbane. Dan, you're probably the most knowledgeable when it comes to comic books. I don't know if you're familiar with the New Mutants or with Wolfsbane as a character. I know you are familiar with Arya Stark. What do you think about that casting?
I'm curious how they would do, because Wolfsbane is she's basically a werewolf, completely. Like, that's the character. New Mutants, they're kind of like a spin-off in a way of X-Men. They're mutants, and they later become X-Force, which are like, imagine like if G.I. Joe and the X-Men had a baby. That's kind of like X-Force. And that's where Cable, and that's actually New Mutants is where Deadpool first came out. But it's hard to say. Wolfsbane is such a, I don't know, she's kind of like a know-nothing character. Nothing really. She's more of a concept than a character, I would say. Casting was fine. I'm just curious if they're going to make her look like the actual comic, because like I said, it's like doing a werewolf type of thing, and I guess it could work. I don't know. It'd be like almost like a takeoff of the way they do Mystique, like how she would have to be in like full body makeup the entire time. But
I think Game of Thrones already started the process, right? Like they're already starting to turn her into something else that's not human. I don't know. I'm seeing lots of images and stuff from the next season that seem like they're going.
Yeah, I'm sure she'll become a dragon or something. Yeah, she'll probably die too, because that's usually the
right after the transformation is complete. Amanda, what do you think about this New Mutants and more X-Men characters and storylines, etc.?
All about more mutants, so bring them on, and I'll judge as I see them.
No problem seeing Arya Stark as a werewolf?
No, not at all. I think it'll be pretty cool.
All right, so that does it for the news for this week. We're going to take a quick break and come back with a hefty review of Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. You have to wait and see where we fall in the realm of the critiques that have been dished out on this film. So we'll be right back after the break.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk.
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing.
Car.
Download this show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
Hey guys, it's Optimus Solo and
Hard Candy Mandy.
we just wanted to let you guys know about another podcast out there that we both think you would all enjoy.
It's one of both of our favorite shows to listen to, and it's none other than the True Bromance Podcast.
True Bromance is a movie podcast hosted by longtime friends Hyro and Barry, and if you like to smile, laugh, and just be genuinely entertained while listening to movie talk, then this is definitely the right show for you.
Each week, the guys break down a recently released movie, and not only do they tie in the movie that week to the beers that they are drinking during the show,
but they also tie it into a real fun top and bottom 5 list associated with that movie.
it's a blast hearing both sides of these lists, and it definitely makes them unique amongst all other movie review podcasts.
So we definitely want to recommend all of you guys to go check out their show. Just search out the True Bromance Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and all other podcast platforms. And if you listen via iTunes, do us a favor and leave them a 5-star review. And don't forget to let them know that the Cinema Geeks sent you. All right, thanks for sticking with us. As I said, it's time to talk about Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. Everybody's been talking about it. Most people have probably seen it by now. So we'll do our best to do it justice, no pun intended.
But every pun intended.
But every pun intended. Amanda, we'll start with you this week. Now, just in the opening, I'd just like to get your general level of excitement as you were going into it. What kind of expectations did you have going in? And just give us your general thoughts going out on how you felt about the movie overall before we get into too many specifics.
I think that I had a mild excitement going into it just because I feel like I've been waiting forever. So when the time actually came for me to be able to see this movie, I couldn't fathom that it was actually here and ready for me to view. So I didn't get too nuts. We did see it in a pretty packed theater, but it wasn't like an opening night crowd, so people weren't really dressed up or going nuts or anything like that. But I think this movie made me ask why a lot, especially about like character motivations and things. But I think it really set the stage for me as far as what awesome stuff I should be looking forward to as far as the DC stuff that's coming out. And I think I might have finally figured out if I like Marvel or DC a little bit more as far as this movie universe goes. So
interesting. I'm
yeah.
interested to see more on what you're saying there and dissect that a little bit. Dan, what about you? I know your review is available on the website, so some people may have read that, but what was your excitement level going in and general thoughts coming out?
Well, I feel like we've talked about it a lot, but I feel like this is a movie we've been discussing. It legitimately have been for like years upon years, for about 3 years now. I was still somewhat excited. The second trailer did really bug me a great deal, not because I thought it looked bad, but just because I figured it completely ruined the movie, and we'll get to it. I think it kind of did. Well, not completely, but I think it was unnecessary for many reasons. But I was holding out hope. I really wanted to like this movie. I had issues with Man of Steel, but overall I came down positive on that film, and I like some of Zack Snyder's films. Some of them I don't, but some of them I do. So I was really hoping that like this would be good. Like I thought at least I figured worst case scenario it would be along the same lines as Man of Steel. Best case scenario would be a great, the new norm for great comic book movies. But yeah, so I was hoping, but I was also somewhat pessimistic based upon some of the trailers, and obviously it was hard to avoid just the feedback the movie got immediately after release. So it was, I was just hoping maybe that I would still like it.
Yeah, I was definitely a little scared from hearing all the negative stuff, but I didn't let them shit on my parade. I definitely was still excited about this movie.
I think I must have gone in with the least amount of excitement out of the three of us. Dan, I'm like you a little bit. I think I came down generally positive on Man of Steel. I didn't have the same issues that some people had with it. I mean, it wasn't necessarily like my favorite comic book film of all time or anything, but if I was saying if I came down positive or negative, it would have been on the positive side. But I just had no excitement going into this film. That doesn't mean I was wanting to hate it or looking to hate it or anything like that. I just was very much ready to be disappointed, I guess, in a way. Like I wasn't going to be surprised if it let me down. But I've never been a big Superman fan at all. Mild Batman fan, so I mean that helps a little bit. But yeah, my excitement level was probably the lowest out of all of us. And man, coming out of that film, I almost needed to like run to get like a piece of paper and a pen to start writing down every single one of the problems I had with it, because there's a whole bunch of stuff wrong with this film that we're definitely going to get into. But we talked about all the negative reviews that were coming out right away, and I think it lived up to every single one of those. So to give me a little bit of a spoiler look as to how my take's going to be on the film, but it wasn't a good reaction coming out. So, all right, so let's start getting into it a little bit now that we know kind of where we were coming into the story with. And I just got a couple bullet points that I want to jump off of all of you guys and then give you guys some chance to react freely. But let's break it down little by little, because we've read a lot of reviews, I've listened to a lot of podcasts on that, and I kind of want to get your guys' take on some of the issues that they bring up, both as a positive and a negative that I've heard multiple people bring up. Dan, I'll start with you on this first one, but obviously we begin the film rehashing the origin story of Batman and the Bruce Wayne and his parents, etc., and what happens there. A lot of people have been bringing up that it was a necessary piece to link to things that happen later on in the film, and that there's a payoff involved, and that's the reason why that has to take place. And others who were very annoyed by the fact that they had to sit through and watch the origin story yet again, even though most people on planet Earth should know it by now, even if you're not a comic book fan. What did you think of the inclusion of that aspect of the film?
I guess I expected it. Maybe, again, that's part of doing the news, knowing that there's that Jeffrey D. Morgan was cast as Thomas Wayne, so I kind of knew going in was going to be there, so I expected it, so it wasn't, I do think it's a little bit unnecessary, but I would say overall I like that sequence. I think it's a great looking sequence, and I felt, it, at least enjoyed it for the most part, until flying bats, and that was weird, and like this is that was the first sign of things that this is not going well. But I kind of understand the complaint of saying, do we really need Batman's origin again? I don't know. I'm just glad it wasn't like it too extended. I think the issue was when they kind of kept going back to it here and there throughout the movie, but the opening on that, I was okay with it, mostly because I just assumed it was going to happen, unfortunately.
I agree with you. I think visually it was well done. I think we're going to hear that a lot throughout maybe the rest of our review, that visually is the visual aspect of this film is not necessarily one of the big problems for it at all. Amanda, we looked at each other in the theater when those bats are carrying young Bruce up, and if that had not been a dream sequence, I almost would have lost my shit.
You look done with it.
I was like, I am ready to walk out right now if that was legit. I mean, yes, it was a dream sequence, so yeah, joke's on me. I guess it's not real, so I can forgive them somewhat, but it's still, to open with that imagery and just the eye-rolling aspect of it was not good for me. So that was the only aspect of the visual part of that I didn't like, was the bats carrying him up. Amanda, though, what was your reaction to it as far as seeing the origin story of that again? Do you think it was necessary or not?
I was asking myself, why the fuck do we need to see this again? And the moment where they say it's kind of like the payoff is how it's kind of earned, I was like, okay, once I see that, I could kind of click together later on. I'm like, okay, well, that's why they put that in there. But I really didn't need it. I think I needed them to focus more on the setup of setting the stage of what part of Bruce's life he's in. I feel like he's more, I mean, obviously he's a little bit aged. He's supposed to be an older Batman. All we see, though, was like a little bit of gray hair, and you don't get the feel of his shift from that origin story kind of feel to what he would be like now as an older Bruce Wayne / Batman. I think that he is portrayed a little bit more like the Thomas Wayne and like the alternate universe or whatever, when I think it was like Bruce and Martha died and Thomas lived. He was like a killing Batman. So I feel like he kind of was more...
You're getting like geek credit all over the place, and you're way more knowledgeable at whatever you're talking about than I am.
I feel like that was the what I was getting out of it, but they didn't do a good enough job of setting up his life as older Batman. He was just buff Batman with some gray hair who kills people.
Now, Dan, granted, in that first opening sequence with the parents dying or whatever was probably more character development for Batman than we got with Superman in 2 whole films. But what do you think about what she's saying? Did we miss some of the middle section? Did there need to be not just a flashback to the parents dying, but something to get us to where he goes from the traditional Batman that a lot of people kind of know just in the general public to this older, kind of more curmudgeonly portrayed Batman, or were you fine with the transition to that?
I thought it probably could have been explored more. There were clues here and there where you saw the spray paint on Robin's costume. The mansion was burnt out, so obviously it was a guy who has gone through some things. We don't know necessarily what. That was, I think, a good complaint throughout, though, where it does feel like there's a lot where we skipped a movie or something like that. Like you're going through it and you're like, wait, there's something else here. I felt maybe because I was just in my mind connecting this to Dark Knight Returns, where I just felt like it was just a Batman who's doing for 20 years and has gone through a lot. I thought I was giving enough on Batman's side to at least have a basic understanding of his morals, but I did feel the length in which he was going in the levels of violence he was inflicting did seem odd to me, and I didn't necessarily feel like that was ever really justified as much as the film wanted it to be.
So skipped a movie, perhaps, as in we didn't have standalone films for Batman, Wonder Woman, etc. to set up the full universe? That, or it feels like, in a way, maybe the original idea when this came out was that this was supposed to be, the Christian Bale Batman. Like, that was maybe the idea where, this is a Batman who maybe was retired for a period of time, but had to come back after what he saw with happened with Superman or something like that. Like that, I know they've been trying to do some of these storylines forever. Even remember back when I Am Legend came out, they had that teaser poster in the background in New York, where people were talking about it, and they've been talking about doing the Death of Superman story since it happened in the 90s as well. And it does feel like it's a script that has been on the shelves for a long time, and people have kind of took things out, put things in, and I think that, like I said, I feel like in a lot of ways this was designed originally with the idea that maybe this would be in the Nolanverse in some way. Maybe I'm mistaken, but it does feel like that at times. Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
I think, though, with the fact that we don't have all these pieces filled in, we just have little glimpses of things that have happened, traumas or whatever that's happened in his life. It really enticed me to want to see more of it. So I think that all these little snippets of seeing Robin's costume spray painted and things like that, I'm just it made me even more excited to see Suicide Squad and to see this other stuff coming out. I feel like a lot of times in this movie, something like that happened, to where this movie is more like a setup movie, but I think it did it well in its job to get me excited and make me want to see more, not just leaving me with all these gaps.
If they ever do fill in the gaps, I guess would be the caveat there, which I don't know if they're just going to move on and go past that, which would still leave a lot of stuff not connected. For me, the immediate gut reaction of seeing the origin story of Batman was the same as you, Amanda. I was like, do I really need to see this again? And I think part of that was I knew I was going into a 2.5-hour film, and seeing anything that I already knew seemed like, hey, this is how this could not have been 2.5 hours. But that was just my initial reaction. I mean, maybe there are some connections to stuff later on, but like I said, I think most of us know it. But I think, Dan, you made a great point. If they had just had, not that it had to be Christian Bale, I guess, but if that was connected straight to that universe, it would make a lot more sense to kind of jump into that, I think. And we talked a little bit about the opening with the dream sequence of him being lifted up by the bats. Dream sequences and flashbacks seem to be a recurring theme in this film. We got quite a few different, from both the side of Batman as well as Superman, where they're flashing back or seeing different visions. Amanda, do you think that was overdone, or do you think they had a nice balance of the flashbacks in order to fill in some of these gaps that we're talking about?
I'm not sure. I know that Superman in the comics did, see some kind of vision of his father and all this other stuff, in the time surrounding when his death was closed, or when it was happening or whatever. So maybe that was something they were trying to throw in to keep in line with the comics. I'm not really sure why we needed him, but maybe it was just kind of to move along the direction of where the characters were supposed to be going, as far as where their decisions were taking them and their thought processes.
Dan, we had, like I said, a lot of dream sequences, even to the point where we almost went Inception with the dream sequence inside of a dream sequence, it seemed like.
That would trip me out.
Did you think it was overdone, or how did it fit in with the rest of the movie? Was it jarring at all for you?
I felt it was... I don't know if it was overdone, but I felt it wasn't placed very well, because it felt like linking up when, like, one's going to come at when he's downloading a file, he's going to fall asleep and have a vision, and their visions, I think, them, like, are they visions, or are they, like, some sort of insight into the future, because there are, like, things and hints to characters like Darkseid, and there are things Superman says, and the one vision within Batman, which Batman necessarily wouldn't. Like, why would he say that in a Batman vision? Because he's, like, kind of referencing people that Batman doesn't even know. So it's, like I said, similar with, like, the opening. Like, it looked great, but I think the practicality of them and how they felt forced at times. And it just, at times it'd be like, I'd rather watch that movie that you're presenting to me than the one I'm watching right now. And the Superman one, like, the one he had of his father, just, again, that just seems like, I was like, why is this? Like, that one felt the most off the wall, because I'm like, why is this happening? Is it like
you had to pay Kevin Costner to be in your film for that?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a Zack Snyder thing too, because I think he uses that as a crutch a lot. The dream sequence, he's done it in 300. He like Sucker Punch is just one gigantic dream sequence made into a movie, and I think he uses it because he's like, well, if it's a dream sequence, I can kind of do what I want, make things look cool, and really don't have to justify anything, and things can kind of make no sense, and it's okay because it's a dream. And I feel like he's gone to that way too much. And, you know, maybe these are things that'll fill in later, like we said with Batman, but for the film that I'm watching, considering what is lacking, like, this isn't really answering a lot of the issues that I have. If you remove these dream sequences, for the most part, I think you're not going to affect the film at all. And like, for the positive or negative, it's just going to be, if anything, you can maybe develop more time into fleshing out some of these characters. But I just think they're, you know, again, they look great, but they don't really function beyond much more than that.
And it's almost like it could have been something like you have your initial cut of the film, you know, the 4 or 5 hour cut, and then you start editing it down. It seems like some of this stuff would have been the stuff that could have been left on the, you know, like a director that maybe has a little bit more ability to leave things out would have found some of these things to say, well, that's not, like you're saying, it's not affecting the overall film. I can cut a little bit here, cut a little bit there, and make a more fluid story. It just seemed like somebody along the way wasn't able to do that, and we have a lot of pieces here that don't necessarily seem like they're pivotal to the overall film that are left in the final product. And hey, we got like a 3-hour rated R cut that's going to be on the Blu-ray. So
hopefully the 30 minutes is an apology.
I don't think so. With the way that he's coming to the defense of this film, I don't know.
The one feature sequence that kind of bugged me the most was like the one within the funeral, and like that one just seemed really kind of ridiculous, especially the way it ended. I'm just like, I don't know if this is telling me nothing. Like that one was kind of just like, okay, let's take it down a few pegs, but you know.
Yeah. I agree with you on that one. Getting into Batman a little bit more, since we've been talking about him a lot before we turn the page to some other people. Another thing that a lot of people had issue with, obviously, is not just I don't think a lot of people had an issue with Batman being older, being a little more seasoned, maybe a little bit more, what's the word I'm trying to think of, pessimistic about the world and people in it. But I don't think that was the problem that a lot of people had, but the violence that he is doling out, I think a lot of people are pointing to of being somewhat uncharacteristic of Batman. I guess similar arguments were made about Superman and Man of Steel, which I didn't have as big of a problem with. But here, it seems like there's kind of a conflicting nature to this story. And Amanda, you brought this up as far as the branding of some of the individuals, and then kind of putting that against some of those scenes where he is fighting a big group and ends up obviously killing one of them.
He's snapping motherfuckers' necks, and he feels the need to brand people so they get killed in prison. Like,
so you think only one's needed? If you're branding people so someone else is going to take care of it, you don't need to kill them yourself?
Yeah, but at the same turn, like, if you're willing to just snap people's necks and shoot everybody possible, I don't know why you would need to brand people. You would just probably dole out your own justice. And I think that him marking people So justice will play out as it will. Beyond that, it doesn't really make sense to me.
Well, I can see that if that's how they're going to play the character, where he's to the point where he's letting other people decide what to do with these people, but he's marking them. I think that's still somewhat, and I don't have the background in the Batman character to say if that serves his character justice or not. But I can see that more if that's what he's doing and not also killing people. But when he's doing both, it seems to be somewhat of a contradiction. And my biggest problem with that whole group fight is
in the dream sequence, when he's got the trench coat on?
I'm talking about the one sequence where he has beat up like 7 or 8 different guys.
He's just murking people.
But no, he's beat them all up. He hasn't killed any of them, I don't think, at that point. And then he gets to the last guy, and everybody else is already out cold. And doesn't he stab him or something, or shoot him?
He got stabbed, and so he stabbed the dude back.
It just seemed like at that point you've already taken out everybody else. You should be able to take that guy out without killing him. But I'll let you guys go first. Dan, what did you think about the characterization of Batman as I guess, a killing machine?
I mean, I didn't mind that he was more violent, because I felt like that was, like I said, Dark Knight Returns. He's very much like that. He's much more violent. And the killing thing does kind of... It does bug me in the sense of, like, that's, like, Batman's one rule. And the reason that matters is because when it comes to, like, a character like the Joker, then it's like, why doesn't he just kill him? Because he has more justification in killing him than he does. That's, like, that whole, the whole thing he goes through with a character like that. So that did kind of bother me in the sense of, like, it just, like, once he goes through that line, once he kills someone, like, for that character, it does seem like it's something crossing a line he's never going to be able to cross. And, like, again, when you come to, like, he's supposed to be in a Suicide Squad movie, or if there's a Batman movie, then do you really have that, that debate that he wouldn't sometimes go through about killing Joker or not. Though, to be fair, if you do go back and watch some of the older Batman films, he does kill, like, all the time. Like, the Michael Keaton Batman, like, legitimately, like, blows a dude up. Like, throws a grenade, like, in his pants, like, throws him away. And, like, that guy's dead. So it's not uncommon for Batman to kill people in the movies, but especially, like, in the older films. But I think he's much evolved as a character since then. And even, in the Nolan films, he made a point not to kill, though you could argue it kind of kills Liam Neeson in Batman Begins. I don't know. But, yeah, I did have an issue with it because it just, even him and Superman, it just seemed like they were superheroes not acting very superhero-y, I guess.
Yeah. I think the point that I was trying to make, though, is that I wouldn't have a problem with him killing someone, I don't think, if it was a situation like... that there was no other alternative, I guess, which is a lot of people's defense for the Man of Steel. But
yeah, like, I didn't mind it in Man of Steel because I felt like it was a situation where, like, he kills them or those people die. And that it felt more like, it's a little easier to just kill him. Like, that felt like this movie where he could have done something else, but it's like, you know what? Yeah, he's got a flamethrower on. He kind of deserves to die. So,
yeah, it was just more of there's alternate methods at this point, and it wasn't a situation where he's backed into a corner. He's just deciding to kill people. So, like you said, it kind of takes some of the weight away from the moral dilemma if he comes across a situation where he has to decide to kill or not kill. Amanda, any other thoughts on Batman's characterization with that before we move on to the next point?
I do think that Ben Affleck did a really good job here. I think he got buff as fuck for this. I was shocked. Did have a little Rocky training montage workout scene. Didn't know that we really needed that, but I think that it showed him as, like, an actual contender. I mean, he knew that he was weak compared to Superman, so he had to do something to feel more capable. And I like that he would kind of come in with that, the Arkham Asylum video game feels, where he kind of just swoops down and just beats the snot out of everybody. I thought that was super cool, and I did enjoy how violent it got. I liked it, so I think that he did kind of a good job. And on top of it, with the opening scene where you see him trying to get to the point where he can rescue people and all that the Superman versus Zod fight is going on, I think that did the most to set up his viewpoint on Superman than anything else in the movie.
And you segue pretty good into another point here, because we do get to see a tie-in to Man of Steel directly as we kind of go backwards and see where Batman is during that time period, which kind of sets up the whole scenario of Batman and Superman being in the same world. Dan, how do you think the Man of Steel tie-in was handled, seeing Batman kind of in that position while Superman and Zod are fighting, and kind of to go along with that, the inherent motivation now for Batman to dislike Superman as we set up this film?
I really liked that sequence. Actually, I thought it was really well done. I thought it looked great. Even the sequence of him running into the cloud where everyone's running away. It looked. I don't know. It did add a great deal of realism to this crazy event, where it did feel like, wow, I'm really there seeing these this craziness occur, and I think that was actually shot in IMAX, and it looked like, and I think they took advantage of it, and I thought that was a great place to start, because it did really give you an idea of, okay, this guy has motivations to want to stop Superman, because look at everything he's doing, the friends he's killed, the destruction he's causing. I completely justify what's going to hopefully come next. So I think it started off with a strong. It started off strong for me. Where it ended up, that's a different question. So
I think it really kind of brought it down to earth and made it real for us. Like, it had like a 9/11 feel. So I mean, it could take it out of this fantastical realm where Superman and aliens exist to, you can see the impact on other people who aren't on this, God level, superhero level too. So, and I think it showed Bruce Wayne as, like a real dude at that point, just as helpless as the rest of us were to stop anything.
I think this is one of the best done sequences of the entire film, honestly. This is everything involving Batman and his involvement in this world that we've seen in Man of Steel, and kind of setting up the motivation for why he dislikes Superman, is probably the most that this film makes sense in the entire thing. Like, everything seems to go together here. Everything's very easily relatable and understandable as far as his motivations and thought process. So let's flip it then to the...
Oh, wait.
Oh, go ahead.
What about his suit? We didn't talk anything about his suit or his new car.
Go ahead. What do you feel about his suit or his car or his regular suit or his armored suit or whatever you want to talk about?
The armored suit I always kind of had a little bit of a problem with, but I know that that's kind of what it needed to be, just to get them on like a level playing field. But they didn't do any setup for it. Like, I would have liked it better if there was some kind of like setup where Alfred was talking about the development or making this suit for him or anything like that. He just kind of shows up in it at one point. But I think that his other suits were kind of forgettable. I don't even really remember seeing anything distinguishing on them. I do think that the dream sequence, the desert dream sequence with Batman meeting Superman, when he has kind of like that trench coat thing on, and it's like his bat helmet thing, but not his normal, get-up. It did have like a Zack Snyder feel. It made me think of Sucker Punch a lot, that scene, but I think that it was cool seeing him in, out of his element a little bit. It's not Gotham City anymore, so. In the car, it was pretty cool, but you saw it for like 2 seconds, I feel like.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me for any of that type of stuff is that it wasn't done to a way that looked like distractingly bad or anything like that, so it's fine for me. I liked his regular get-up. I thought it was well enough done that it was believable that he looked like a modern and older version of Batman, and I had no problem with it. Dan, what do you think?
I like the look, actually. I liked the gray, the black on the gray with the black emblem and the shorter spikes on the head, or what do you want to call them, the shorter ears. The Batmobile itself, just, I don't know, it was kind of forgettable to me. Part of it was like that sequence is so dark, it's hard to really make out what it looks like. But I don't know, it just seemed like it didn't really have anything that really stood out to me with the design of the Batmobile compared to like other ones. It wasn't awful. It wasn't like something like the Batman and Robin Batmobile or something like that. That's laughably bad, but it also wasn't like, it didn't have a iconic shape to it or iconic look to it like the Tumbler or even the 1989 one that I would remember. It just seemed like just a general design that is, makes sense. It's practical and it's not too crazy, but it's also just nothing that I'm okay that it got destroyed. I like the look of the Batwing, the Bat plane a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm with you. It was somewhat forgettable, but not necessarily bad to a point where it was distracting or laughable like some things have been in Batman's past. Now, Dan, the title of the film is Batman versus Superman, and so far we've only talked about one of those characters. So I don't know if bringing in this other character is where all the problems begin or not, but taking your opinion here, because we talked about Batman's motivation for disliking Superman and somewhat being out to stop him and kind of get retribution for all the destruction that he was causing in his fight with Zod, etc. And just the whole idea that there's a godlike creature basically holding dominion over this area of the world. If we flip it to Superman's motivations and his part of being involved in this versus, as we see in the title, how did that work for you?
I feel like Superman is by far it's awful in this movie. Like
that's one way to put it.
I don't think Henry Cavill is a bad Superman. I just don't think he gets anything to do for the most part. And I think it starts with his first main scene in Africa. And I have major issues with that scene for a lot of different reasons. It makes very little sense. It's like they're trying to set up Superman and thinking he killed those people, I guess, but why would he kill them with guns? They shot them all, and also if he can save Lois, why is he then not able to save the other guy as well? I guess who is supposed to be Jimmy Olsen, supposedly. Why does that? And then again, he doesn't care about in the aftermath of that, and I'm pretty sure he kills that guy. I mean, he doesn't necessarily need to. So his justification for why he wants to stop Batman feels so hollow to me, and it doesn't make sense because he's doing nearly the same things. I don't understand who he is as a person and his motivations as a whole. He's so misrepresented in this and for so many different reasons, and I feel like he is a character that spends the entire time listening to people tell him what to do rather than kind of having an opinion on anything. And the one time you think he's actually going to be able to say something and say where he stands, an explosion happens, and then he ends up sulking for the rest of the movie. So it's just, I don't know. I feel like Superman by far, I think mostly that Zack Snyder does not understand that character or doesn't like that character or what have you. And you end up with a Superman that is lifeless and uninteresting and really has little resemblance of the Superman that you would expect to see.
I mean, we all agreed that Batman's motivations made sense. His desire to not and to kind of battle Superman and his motivations make sense. Are we all going to agree, or do you take the other side? How did Superman's motivations to not have Batman in the picture work with you or not work?
Yeah, that didn't really make any sense to me. I did feel like the whole time that Superman was this kicked puppy. I felt super freaking bad for him the whole time, and I was like, dude, he's just saving you guys. That's all he's fucking doing. Why are you being so mean to him? I was rooting for him, really, I was, but I couldn't feel for his cause against Batman by any means. But I think that maybe it was just kind of, it felt like a mild pissing contest. Oh, you're the next biggest, baddest dude around, and I'm kind of expected to take you out, so that's kind of what's going to happen. But, yeah, I don't get why he did anything in this.
Dan, I don't know if this was in your review or something else that I read, but I thought it was very well put that basically Superman doesn't like Batman because he's going around being a vigilante, even though Superman's basically doing the same thing. Yeah,
like I said, with the whole Africa thing, he kills this warlord or severely hurts him, and then he doesn't care at all about what happens after that. And this whole we see in the Senate that this entire bloodlust and this basically, Beast of No Nations happens after that, and and he does nothing for that because Lois Lane's not in trouble, so why would he care? Because that's the only thing he really seems to care about all that much. So yeah, that's my problem. He wants Batman to have this moral code that he doesn't even have himself. So again, that's yeah.
And then this whole thing, I mean, obviously the whole title of the film and everything about how this is billed is that it's Batman versus Superman. So we're going to have this showdown. We're going to eventually see them come to blows. And when they finally do interact with each other and have a fight sequence, A lot of people thought that was not necessarily handled very well. I've heard a lot of people say Rock'em Sock'em Robots, or where they're just basically running into each other. Dan, was that the worst fight sequence in a superhero film for a long time, or did the actual fight that we've been waiting 3 years to happen pay off for you?
It certainly didn't pay off for me. Like, I felt there was the fight sequence in the Flash TV show against, like, Flash and Arrow, and I thought that was better handled in a sense of, like, there was more creative things done within that sequence than was in this. And there were some okay things, like the start off all little traps Batman sets, but it just ends up being a punching in the face contest with little, like, little back and forth. I don't know, like, Rock'em Sock'em Robots is a good thing for it. It just didn't seem to have any creativity or anything all that much. It was just, and it didn't last very long for the most part. Not that you need to have a 15-minute action sequence, but I just actually ended up rewatching, like, today, the Captain America and Winter Soldier, not to compare it to Marvel, but, like, watching a sequence between, like, Winter Soldier and Captain America. There's such an intensity there, and I don't see that intensity with this film. Like, in that battle, I felt nothing. Like, this is supposed to be the pinnacle moment, the Batman v Superman, this thing people have been waiting for forever, and it's just a lot of people falling through walls and getting hit with things, which that was a cool moment, I'll grant you, but overall it's like, I was hoping for more. That was bottom line for me.
Amanda, disappointed with the fight between Batman and Superman, or did you think it fit the bill? And then also, obviously, towards the climax, I guess, of their encounter with each other, we have the controversial turn where Batman finally sees the human side of Superman because they share mom's names of each other, and he snaps out of his fury to rid the world of this demigod. So, first reaction on the fight, liked it or didn't like it, and then your reaction to the Batman turn.
I definitely was disappointed in the fight. It could have definitely lasted a little bit longer. There should have been some better exchanges. I think maybe because they're on such a level to where their strength is so great that they don't need intricacies in fighting. Like, what it comes to mind is just in the trailer of Civil War when the Winter Soldier and Tony Stark are fighting, and Tony gets the Iron Man suit around his hand just in time to block the shot in his face from the Winter Soldier. I get, like, goosebumps every time, but that's some crazy hand-to-hand combat stuff going on to where you kind of have time to feel that oh shit moment, where in this they were just kind of, it definitely was just a show of strength, really, just punching and throwing and all that good stuff. But as far as the turn goes, I think that kind of wrecked it for me. Like, I couldn't even really remember any of the fight because after that point I was just like, what the fuck?
We spent, like, I wasn't keeping time in the theater, so I have no idea how much of the movie we'd spent up to this point, but it had to have been an hour to an hour and a half at least that we've been watching this film and seeing Batman's motivations for why he wants to get rid of Superman and why he can't trust if there's he has the epic speech, if there's a 1% chance that he could do harm to our world, and he's got to go unless his mom's name is the same as my mom's name. Dan, was that, like, one of the worst moments in the film?
Like, I think, like, I understood the initial, like why he would hesitate, though I don't understand why Superman would say, you have to say Martha and not my mom, because who says that? Like, who would say, but whatever. Like, I don't mind the idea of him stopping and, like, not killing him, and because it would bring back these weird memories. I get that, but, like, the then jump from I'm gonna kill you because you might destroy the world to we're not best friends because our moms share the same name. Maybe that's why he doesn't kill Joker, because Joker's mom is also named Martha. I don't know. That, like I said, like the
has any moment spawned more internet memes in the last couple of years? Any movie moment?
It's up there. It's got to be up there. Like, it's up there with Hail Hydra. Like, after that happened, it's got to be in the top 5 for sure. Yeah,
my favorite one is by far the Step Brothers one that Amanda, she posted that pretty quickly after that, and I thought that was absolutely perfect because it goes from a sequence where he wants to kill him to he hesitates to kill him to he's going to let him live to calling him his friend to like basically defending his honor.
Yeah.
He's going to go save this dude's mom.
Like,
and he's never met him before.
I don't mind him stopping killing him because it's like, okay, like, I need to save this person because that would something Batman would do that because Batman would, if he knew someone was in danger, he would try to help that person. But again, then like when he's like, I'm your son's friend, or at the end where he's, I guess we're doing, but he's like, I failed him. I'm like, what do you mean you failed? Like, what did you guys barely talk to each other. What did you fail him? Like,
yeah, I guess we should have said there can be spoilers in this discussion since we feel like the whole world has seen this film already, or at least those apparently that were going to see it have seen it, and nobody else is going to.
We're not spoiling anything.
Yeah, we're not spoiling anything. That brings up one other thing, because in that sequence we also not only have Superman and Batman talking about their mom's names, but we have the aide of Lois Lane coming in to tell them that is his mom's name as well. Dan, how is it possible that Lois Lane is everywhere in every scene, and in both Gotham and Metropolis and in the desert and anywhere that any of these guys are? Is she also superpowered?
Well, she's Amy Adams, so that's her superpower. I don't know. They needed to...
Is this Zack Snyder's favorite character?
Maybe, or he just really likes Amy Adams, or she has like a time limit in her contract, so they had to put her in so many scenes. Honestly, I don't know. Like, I feel like I didn't really notice that in the movie. Like, I didn't even connect those. I guess I just assumed she would show up, but it does seem like her like subplot of like researching this bullet does seem rather pointless for at the end of the day, because it's like it didn't end up really doing anything. And I don't like, why would you also then use a bullet that only you use to kill people when you're trying to frame someone? That makes no sense. Like that, like, well, who would do that? Like that, but sorry.
That's awesome. Amanda, fan of Lois Lane in this film or not?
No, she was super useless. I couldn't get behind anything that she was doing. Her reaction to what Clark's mom gives her when she's sitting on Clark's bed at the end, I would have had a very different reaction to that. She's like smiling. I would have been bawling my freaking eyes out. I would have been an inconsolable mess, and she's just kind of, smiling to herself, and just a lot of her actions, I'm just like, why are you even here? Why are you trying? What do you think you're going to be able to do? You're just going to be in the way, because she was at every turn. Even if she's trying to help doing something, she ends up getting in the way and causing a problem anyways.
Speaking of which, are Clark Kent's parents just like pure evil? Because it's like, you have Kevin Costner in the first show saying that you probably could have let those kids die. Martha Kent saying like, you don't necessarily need to be their hero. Well, who cares? And then it's like, hey, my son died. Here, feel sadder. Like, why would you
feel worse about this?
Why would you do that?
Pure evil.
I did like the line that Martha Kent used when, saying that you don't owe this planet anything. And I really, really like that going into the movie, seeing that in the trailer. That's kind of what solidified my intrigue into this, because I thought I'd never really seen it that way, but now I do. Like, dude, he's just helping you motherfuckers out because he's nice as hell.
Which could have been a great thread to this whole story if they would have developed the people turning on Superman in a more, I don't know, visceral way, to the point where he would have felt, where we would have been able to believe that he was like, screw this planet, I don't owe them anything, and that all could have had a lot more weight, but it just seemed like it was handled such amateurishly. I don't think that's a word, but... A
couple of the scenes where they did show people's reactions to him saving people or doing these great things, and how they really did depend on him, I did enjoy. I thought that really set up the feel of how needed he really was, and how some people aren't reacting to him positively. So that's why I was kind of blown off track, where I'm like, okay, you see all these scenes where these people are showing him gratitude and love and like calling out for him to help, but then you have all these senators and these protesters screaming to kind of lock him up or go back to whatever universe you came from, bud. But So I really didn't see that as earned either.
Also getting in, I mean, we're running a little bit long, but we got a couple more things to cover, obviously, with this film. And one item that we have not talked about, which I'd like to get your quick reactions to, is the character, obviously, of Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg. Amanda, how did that work for you? Obviously, a different take from Lex Luthor than we've seen before, channeling maybe some other villains that we're more familiar with. What did you think about his role as Lex Luthor? Did it work for you? Did it not? A lot of people are saying that's the worst part of the film.
I think he did and he didn't. I like how it was Alexander Luthor. It wasn't necessarily either older Lex Luthor. I liked how it was a younger take, a more modern take. I think that his company kind of felt a little like Google on the face, you know what I mean? Looking at it as something you would see like the Google Corporation doing, but then at the same time he's like developing weapons and has all these government ties and things like that. So I thought it was kind of a cool aspect to see a modern take on LexCorp. But as far as his actual character goes, I think it's kind of likened to the new, like the Jared Leto Joker, how it is a very modernized version. And I think he should have stayed in like the, I don't know, like not so much megalomaniac and kind of more quirky nerd with some homicidal tendencies. I think I like that a little bit better than this whole megalomaniac side. So I think that there was kind of like a shift to where on one hand he's got these delusions of grandeur, and then on the other side it's just he wants to get rid of Superman and Batman. Like he's got all kinds of stuff going on. I really wasn't sure what he was dealing with as far as like his mental capacity. Like I know he's smart, but I don't know what kind of emotional state he's in. Like does he have all these personalities? Is he coming into his own still? Is he dealing with daddy issues? Because he mentions, you know, a lot of crazy stuff that happened with his dad too. So I really didn't know what was making him him.
Dan, bouncing off of that and kind of going with what she was saying, she mentioned, you know, having a lot of personalities. Did it seem, is the problem with his character that everybody's having, is it more of how he's depicting it, and that it seems like he can't decide whether he wants to be Lex Luthor, the Joker, the Riddler, or some type of combination of a couple other villains? Or is it more so just with the motivation that this character has and how he fits into this whole story in the first place?
I don't mind his portrayal. Like, I don't think the issue with Lex Luthor or the problems of Jesse Eisenberg. I think, you know, he's certainly going for something, but I think that's obviously a direction standpoint that they want him to go, because it's clearly the idea with the script is it's a Lex Luthor who's certainly more, I don't know, loosely tied to his sanity is very loose, to say the least. I think the issue with Lex Luthor is that there's no understanding of why he's doing anything. Like we mentioned, it changes from time to time, but even when it changes, it doesn't change to something that really feels all that legitimate. It's like The Dark Knight, where the Joker would change his origin story of how he got the scars every time, and now we're finding out different reasons of why he's doing what he's doing. And like, I don't like, does he want Batman to kill Superman, or does he want, like, it doesn't. He is the big reason a lot of this stuff is happening, but it doesn't certainly even make sense. Like, why does he even make Doomsday? Like, why does he even do that? Like, what is the goal there? Because, like, if he does that, then what happens? And, like, what is his overall, what is he hoping to achieve? Like, I'd never even understood, let alone his motivations, just beyond just, I want to kill Superman. But then what happened? Like, that, I guess that was my biggest issue. It just seemed so haphazardly done that it felt really unearned and unnecessary, and just basically contrived is the best way to put it. And I didn't mind the performance. I don't have an issue if you're gonna take a character like Lex Luthor and do something different with them. I know a lot of people hate that, but I'm okay with it. But, like, again, I wouldn't point to any issues with Jesse Eisenberg. It was an odd performance, but I also don't know how you could say the lines he was given any other way. Like, how do you say redcoats are coming and not seem like a great, like, not do that in a way that's convincing? So, I don't know.
I think my only problem with his performance, I think, would come down to his very last scene that he's in. To me, that seemed to go a little bit off the rails. Yeah. But up to that point, I didn't have any problem with his actually acting or portrayal of it. I think my major problem is like what you were saying with the motivations of why this character is doing anything in this film that he does.
I think he's just basically trying to sow the seeds of chaos, but you really don't know why he decides to be one of those watch the world burn kind of guys.
Well, it's fine if he has the potential was there. He should be having the exact same motivation that Batman does. They should both be trying to get to the same ends, but obviously going about it a little bit differently. They both want to... The idea was there that they should both be trying to rid this world of this god that could basically, like I said, hold dominion over this area, and then you could have had that set up for some pretty interesting moral dilemmas between how Batman's doing it and how Lex Luthor's doing it. But it seems like they didn't care to develop that at all, and he's just, like you said, haphazardly going about this and just randomly doing things that are all going to be chaotic, but there has to be something tying that together unless you're just completely nuts. So... maybe that's what they're going for, and he's just completely nuts. I don't know. Last thing before I'll give you guys just kind of some free reign to run through some different topics, but wanted to get your ideas on the Justice League tie-ins, the setup of this universe and setup for the new film, the appearance that we do get of, you know, the Flash and Cyborg and Aquaman, the obviously inclusion of Wonder Woman, which we haven't talked about yet, but how did this set you up for the Justice League movie, first of all, and then how do you think just the way that they were woven into this film either worked or didn't work? Was it shoehorned or was it natural, Amanda?
I super loved how they did it in this film. I'm glad that I didn't have to wait after the credits to see some cool shit that's going to get me excited for other movies that are coming out.
You didn't have to wait till after the credits, but did it not feel like they had just taken the post-credit scene and just kind of shoved it inside the movie?
No. I liked how they set it up, how they included it into the movie, how it made it a serious part of the film. I think this was probably the coolest aspect about this film and something that I loved the most. And I think that maybe a little weird, like, how the fuck do you have this bitch's email address already? Like, is it really out there? I mean, this Wonder Woman, she probably covers her shit a little bit better. Like, Diana Prince doesn't just have, like, diana.prince@yahoo.com and Batman can fucking email her. But, I think that, besides that, it was cool for him to discover that and have this, like, meta-human theory kind of put out there. I'm pretty sure a lot of people had problems with this. I don't know why I loved it as much as I did. Maybe because of the actual
because it distracted you from the movie that you were watching and
maybe
directed your attention to something else.
A lot of this film just got me excited to see other DC stuff that I'm really looking forward to. And I think that it was nice to see it as more than something that looks like an afterthought or something that is like just a sneak peek that's thrown on the end there. I liked how it was incorporated in and actually was a building point upon what's going to happen later on in these other films. I think that the footage of The Flash with Ezra Miller were super amazing. Like, the looks on his face, the subtle showing of his attitude and the feel that you get from that, I thought was on point. He's like a snarky little badass, and I'm ready for that. And I think that Cyborg, before seeing this, I really wasn't super excited about seeing it. I really hadn't heard much about it. I'm just like, oh, Cyborg, it's gonna be super cool. But I can't get past, like, the Teen Titans look in my head. So, like, I hadn't really tied anything awesome to this yet, but then seeing the just amazing, scary technology that's going into making Cyborg, I'm, like, on board as fuck now to see his movie. I thought that the lab footage of that was super cool, and I can't wait to see that happen. And then, of course, the badass of all badasses, Jason Momoa as Aquaman, the look of him was just amazing, and getting the feel of that underwater shot, and they're coming out on the shipwreck, like, I get this sense of, like, eerie, creepy something lurking there, and then you see the glowing eyes, which I thought was a super, super cool touch, and then to see him come out and just trident the crap out of the camera in all his tattooed glory was just amazing. I couldn't get enough of it. As far as, like, Wonder Woman goes, though, I didn't really care for her. I was ready to see, like, a super cool female in here and have an awesome Wonder Woman. I just don't think she looked like an Amazon. I like that she had, like, an accent so you could see where she really wasn't, like, Americanized and, like, from here all the way, even though she's been here for, you know, she's been everywhere, really. But I liked how she kind of kept her to where she was exotic. I liked the exotic nature of her, but just looking at her, she didn't look like an Amazon. Like, you could see every piece of her spinal cord, like, through her back. Like, she did not look, like, muscular or, like, substantial like an Amazon would. She was just kind of, like, bony in there, and I didn't really believe her strength, I think, was my main problem with it.
I think I'm going to disagree with almost everything you said.
Oh, my God.
Outside of Aquaman, I was not affected whatsoever by Flash, by Cyborg. I was just like, okay, I realize that you have to like bring these guys up because you're trying to set up another film. Really cool seeing Aquaman, but that whole sequence I could care less about. I actually, from the moment that Wonder Woman comes onto the scene, I enjoyed that part of the film on to the end more than I liked everything since the Batman beginning of the film. Like,
what
whole
about
middle
her
section
was intriguing, though?
I know. I just like the way that they somehow. I found it believable that they depicted her in a way that, like you said, she's been around forever. She's been everywhere, and she somehow had, even if she didn't have maybe the body structure of a bodybuilder or of like a UFC fighter or something like that. But the way that they portrayed her though too in those fights made it seem like she could trade blows with all these guys on a very equal footing. I like the visual effect of the lasso and a couple other things they did with her. And I think it was more not necessarily anything to do with her character, but from the point that she comes on the film to the end, the pacing issues of the film are fixed. So I was just more entertained from that part, and it just happens that she was a part of that part of the film, I guess, for me.
So it's got really nothing to do with her.
It might not have as much to do with her, but it seemed like, hey, she's on the scene now, and stuff's actually starting to happen and progress at a natural pace, and we're not sludging our way through this. But I did like the way they depicted her, and I thought it was. I thought some of the facial expressions she used were really good. I know some people had a problem because they seemed like they said that she was alluding to the fact that she was always just smiling or kind of like snickering. I thought that was kind of a cool touch. So I'm actually I had no excitement for Wonder Woman going to this. I know nothing about the character. It reminds me too much of Superman, which is a character I don't like. But Wonder Woman and Aquaman actually have me excited to see more, as well as the Batman portrayal by Ben Affleck. But Dan, I'll give you a chance to kind of bounce off everything we're saying. Was it a natural part of the film? Obviously, they had to do something to set up the Justice League, but was it natural, or did it feel shoehorned in? Did you like the sequences there? And then what was your reaction to Wonder Woman?
I thought the email felt super shoehorned in because it's like, I'm going to send you this email, and good thing that Lex Luthor also created these logos for every character as well, because why would you do that? But anyways, I thought the videos themselves were kind of cool. Like I did like how they did Aquaman, and it does kind of have me excited for what has come in store. Where it fit in the film was a little bit, I don't know. It was like, we're going to pause all this time to show you all these separately, but whatever. I liked Wonder Woman. I felt in the movie, like, it did seem, I don't know, like, your justification for being there was limited, like how she had to get this photograph, and though I was an idiot and was looking at the photograph thinking, like, that guy looks a lot like Chris Pine. I'm like, oh, that's actually Chris Pine. But but I
said the same thing a couple times.
Yeah.
She literally did say that out loud.
Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, I liked what we saw. That she had good chemistry with Ben Affleck. I thought she was fine. I thought she looked fine in the action sequences, especially her kind of, I guess, reveal as Wonder Woman when she first shows up saving Batman. I really liked that moment, and I liked the little attitude she had in the fights where she she has that enjoyment look of, like, you know, she's craving the battle like you would expect for a Wonder Woman, and I'm actually quite excited for a Wonder Woman movie based upon what we did see of her and where it could go. Does she look like an Amazon? I probably not, but I don't know. Like, I don't know unless you get the one person from the Game of Thrones. I don't know if there's many actresses out there that can play an Amazon. But
she doesn't have to be like a fucking wildebeest, but she needs to put a little fucking meat on her bones if I'm going to believe her picking up Superman.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt I was convinced enough. Yeah, for the most part. You know, it's Wonder Woman, but I don't know. Like, I get what they're doing there, but I had more an issue with, like, the email than the inclusion of Wonder Woman, just because it just seemed like an odd spot to do it. But
It should have been like AOL messaging from back in
Maybe,
the day.
maybe, yeah, or like a MySpace page or something like that.
Oh, I found Wonder Woman on Facebook.
But I don't understand where it's like the whole she has to find a photo, because it's like, can she be like, I just look a lot like my grandmother? Like, that is not like,
right.
But whatever.
Yeah, and then obviously the icing on the cake, which we haven't talked about, and again, we're not really spoiling anything, I don't think, but if you haven't seen it, the film, maybe stop listening to us. But controversial, I guess, according to some people. But Dan, what's your thoughts of the ending of the film, and clearly the allusion to a death, even though obviously they spoil it by showing us that immediately he's not dead?
I was actually surprised that they killed him in any way, shape, or form. Like, I was really surprised that happened, even though it, I
mean, they killed Jimmy Olsen and Robin off pretty easily.
Yeah, even though it is somewhat related to Doomsday and the death of Superman's story, but I didn't think it would actually happen. I thought they would actually give us a bigger reveal at the end, like you would legitimately see Superman coming back, not just the Dirt Rising. I don't know. So I like that,
Superman, the Dirt Rises.
Yeah. But I don't know. It did feel, that to me showed me, if anything, just how little I cared about him, because like all this emotion that was supposed to be happening and all these things you were seeing, I felt none of it, because like I said, like I felt like as a Superman I still don't know or understand completely. So
it's like you said, it's 2 films that we've gotten with Superman so far, and I would have felt more bummed if they had killed Batman. Like, I felt more connected to that character than the 6 hours we've had with Superman.
I didn't want him to die, though. Like, I felt bad for him, and he's just doing all this stuff out of the goodness of his heart, really, and then he starts to decide to just kind of do his own thing, and dude gets murdered, man. Not fun. And I wasn't expecting the Doomsday thing. I didn't know that was going to be a part of this.
Yeah, I must have stayed away from rumors a long time, because I had no idea he was even in this film.
Yeah. I thought that whole thing, that could have been its own movie. You know what I mean? That whole setup should have just been its own thing.
Well, I guess that goes through all my points. So, Amanda, any other thoughts on anything you didn't get to talk about? Whether it was Doomsday, Alfred, we didn't get to talk a lot about that. Fight scenes, general thoughts on the film, and then kind of where would you score this one on a scale of 1 to 10?
And I think they definitely underused Alfred in this. I think in a lot of the other movies he's been a bigger, more pivotal role to show his involvement in Bruce's life and what he really means to the cause and to Bruce Wayne.
He didn't have the same clause in his contract that Amy Adams did.
Yeah, he did not have a time where he had to be maxed out for the film, but that was a little sad. I think that the fight scenes, some of them were pretty cool. I don't think they're on like the crazy Marvel Cinematic Universe level, like Winter Soldier and all that good stuff, but as far as the look of the film, I think it definitely looks like a Zack Snyder film. You can see his brushstrokes here and there. I think that one of the coolest things to see was when Superman gets nuked with Doomsday and he's in space, and you see how fugly and messed up he is, and
that was well done.
He starts to kind of regenerate. I thought that was a super cool touch. I think at one point when the change starts to happen, the CG gets a little bit much, but at first I was like, oh shit, that was really cool. I liked how I think that's one of the things that you can see how the film is a little bit darker. I like that.
And score?
Let's see, man. I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10.
That high?
Yeah.
All right. I think you're going to be the highest out of both of us. I think for me, my biggest problem with the whole film is pacing. I was literally bored at times, and I'm not usually bored at any type of superhero comic book film. The first, or that middle probably hour and 15 minutes was almost painful for me. I was not necessarily falling asleep, but I was that bored with parts of it. It just felt like such a slog to get through. I liked the beginning parts with the Batman, even though I could see some places with the flashbacks and with the origin story that they could have maybe cut some of the time off of. I did thoroughly enjoy the last 30 so minutes, even with some of the terrible plot motivations and stuff like that. As far as like the pacing goes, I'm talking about it. It seemed like it fixed itself towards that last 45 minutes, but it just, I felt every minute of that 2.5 hours, and I do not want to see 3 hours worth of a Blu-ray cut or a rated R cut or whatever they're going to be doing. You know, somehow though, I still, even though this movie failed on so many levels, visually it was fine, and it did somehow set up the Justice League movie, even by somehow being a terrible film in my book. It's weird that you could be as bad as it was and still somehow have me interested in some of these characters to continue.
Everything I said, you just keep shitting on.
I'm going to be.
I feel like I'm on an island over here.
I can't forgive some of these things. The Lex Luthor's motivations, Superman's motivations. There's just too many bad things about this whole thing, and I'm going to be much lower than you. I'm going to score this a 3 out of 10.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So 3 out of 10 for me. I'm getting a terrible look, Dan. Let you talk now.
Like, I think there are a lot of positives, and there are, I think, more negatives, though. Like I said, it's a really good Batman movie, an awful Superman movie. I hear a lot of people saying, you know, DC is more grown up, but I don't really feel that. I don't feel like it's a more grown up movie. It may be darker and maybe more violent, but I don't necessarily think it's more adult or grown up than a Marvel film. Really, I feel like if you're looking for movies that kind of get that balance much better, I would say the X-Men films are better at getting a balance of dealing with, you know, darker tones while still maintaining a level of, you know, being somewhat uplifting or somewhat humorous with, like, First Class or Days of Future Past. My biggest issue are simply like motivations of characters left and right, especially Superman and Jesse Eisenberg. And I actually think I would be interested in seeing the 3-hour cut, because I think more time spent with on that story could fix a lot of those problems. I know there were a lot of cuts like days before it was released. There's some scenes that even have been released already. So it's possible to fix those problems. I am excited somewhat still. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to see what they're doing with Wonder Woman, how they're bringing all these other characters together. That's, you know, there were seeds here, and maybe those problems that I do have can be fixed in further films as we find out more about what happened to Batman. I'm still super excited for Suicide Squad, but ultimately I do think that this is a movie that has big ideas, but also has a lot of big problems, and it just it feels like there's too many cooks in this kitchen trying to do too many things and not really getting any of those completely accomplished. For me, I'm going to fall between you guys and give it a 5 out of 10.
All right, so a 3, a 5, and a 7. We're across the board on this one. We'll have to see what the listeners and the fans think on the website on which one of us is most accurate with their feelings. And just kind of in closing here, guys, since we're coming in a little bit after the fact and we've had some time to see some progress on this film, obviously it came out with gangbusters in the first weekend as far as the box office goes, and it was a little battle there where it was the critics were all absolutely shitting on this film, and it was even making headlines as what Rotten Tomatoes was calling I think it was Rotten Tomatoes said the most successful, or maybe Box Office Mojo, the most successful bad movie ever, because there's not very many films that were able to make over 150 million and receive less than a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it was definitely a tale of two cities there, where we had the fans coming out and seeing it in droves. The box office numbers were good. The critics were overwhelmingly negative on this, and it was scoring bad. We had Zack Snyder coming out with article after interview defending this, defending that, every element of the film it seems like he was out in defense for. We had the actors coming out and saying, hey, we don't make movies for critics, we make movies for fans, and the fans have spoken. And then a week later we've seen that it has also set a record by the biggest drop in box office I think ever from week 1 to week 2. It had like somewhere around like an 80% drop off from week 1 to week 2.
Because everybody's shitting on it.
Dan, what do you make of all of this? The hailstorm that has come from this film, the whole fans versus critics thing, the box office success to the box office plummet. What do you make out of all this?
What I don't get the they did it for the fans, so the critics don't matter. Because to me, the issues I have, I don't necessarily I am a comic book fan. I do I've read a lot of these comics, so I don't get that. What exactly do people mean by that? Why? What is it that critics dislike that fans like about it? That seems to me just like a cop-out. I do think the hate does go a little too far in some ways. It seems like people are, going out of their way in some instances to really, crap on the movie. I mean, some people might truly hate it, but I'm mostly surprised by just it feels like there's this dividing line that's being created where people are saying, like, oh, there seems to be this idea of, Marvel fans versus DC fans, where they're saying Marvel movies are for kids and DC movies are for adults. And like I said, I don't get that at all. I think that's just ridiculous in a really limited way of looking at it. I, as someone who did the box office predictions and had Batman v Superman as number one, I was very disappointed it dropped so much, because it's looking like it won't even make more than Daredevil by the end, or not Daredevil, but Deadpool, which I didn't even put in my top 15, so there you go. Yeah, it's weird. It's such a weird thing in a way. And then we've heard news, which maybe we'll cover in later weeks, regarding Warner Brothers and the reaction to it. It's become this huge thing. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this, with all these just vastly different opinions about a movie, and then seeing the box office so drastically fall within a week.
Do you think it's a product of not necessarily people avoiding it because of word of mouth? Because I think a lot of people actually went and saw them, and it was making records at first, whatever it was, opening weekend. Is it more so that a lot of people aren't willing to go back and watch it a second time, or do you think that the reviews have somehow made people avoid it altogether?
I think both. I think there's been so much negativity surrounding this that people are scared to say that they like it, and maybe even not willing to go back and see it a second time because of what you said earlier with pacing issues, and maybe they did get bored and everybody's crying about it. And if they fuck up Suicide Squad by reshooting stuff and making it funnier and not as dark, because people think that's what people are having an issue with, then they're gonna get some serious hate mail from me, at least. And I'm already so upset about it. They're fucking bad guys. Let them be. We're bad guys. Let them be bad guys. Don't make it just funny. It's dark. Keep it dark.
What I don't get about that is anybody who is complaining that the movie is bad because it's dark or gritty.
There are a lot of, I did read a lot of reviews where people are complaining that it's like there's no humor and it's too dark. But it's not. It's,
fuck off.
But like it's one of many. Like it's like it's like that. It's
like, how about the writing? How about the motivations? That's why critics are scoring this bad overwhelmingly. It's not because of the tone.
Yeah.
So they fuck it up. I'm gonna be so mad. I'm gonna cry. I'm literally gonna cry. I felt like crying when I found out about it the other day.
Look at the Dark Knight. Dark Knight is a very dark film, and it did really well. Right. And like I said, the X-Men films, like Days of Future Past, was pretty dark. Mm-hmm. So I did see that as like a headline for a lot of reviews, but it was, like I said, one of many problems that people would point out. So I think it's really just, I don't know, people going for more the generalizations than the real true issues with it.
Yeah. All right, so that does it for our review on Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. You'll have to let us know who you agree with. Is it a 3 out of 10, a 5 out of 10, or a 7 out of 10, or something altogether? 7.5, excuse me. Or is it better, or is it worse than all of us are grading this? So give us your thoughts on the website. Real quick to wrap up here, as far as what's coming out here in the next week, Blu-ray releases coming out. We have one little tiny film from last year that will be brought out on DVD, Blu-ray this Tuesday, which would be Star Wars: The Force Awakens. We have Silicon Valley, the complete second season, The Expanse Season 1, Michael Collins, a new Blu-ray release, Mojave, which is a 2016 release, anime fans, Ghost in the Shell, the new movie. And then for theater releases, we have wide releases. Well, let's put that in quotations because it's not coming as widely as I'd like, but Everybody Wants Some, Miles Ahead, God's Not Dead 2, and some limited video-on-demand releases for Pandemic, The Dark Horse, and Meet the Blacks. Dan, what's intriguing you amongst that list? Are you headed to a store Tuesday to pick up a DVD, or are you going to be seeing one of these theater releases?
I mean, I really want to see Everybody Wants Some because I'm a huge Richard Linklater fan, so that's probably what I'm going with.
All right, Amanda?
I want to see that Mojave movie with Oscar Isaac, but I think that if you don't buy Star Wars, you're stupid.
Are you calling that stupid?
I didn't say I won't buy it. I'm just saying.
See,
part of me does want to wait though to just get the the trilogy all together because it'll probably be some special like Millennium Falcon edition or something like that.
Well, we're in this Disney club, and Kevin said
I-
the funniest shit the other day. Because they'll send it to us and just charge us. You actually have to tell them not to send you something. So
They
Kevin's
give you like a featured selection each month, and you have to opt out of it, or else they automatically send it to you.
And Kevin goes, we do nothing, and they're sending us Star Wars. We don't have to do anything, and they're sending us Star Wars.
So I was happy about that. So that'll count as one of the ones I bought, I guess. But to fulfill our membership quota so we can eventually get out. And then resubscribe under Amanda's name and get some more free movies. I did not say that. All right. So thanks for listening, guys. Make sure you go to the website, geekcastradio.com. Find this episode post. Chime in on anything that we talked about, whether it be news or whether it be your reactions to Dawn of Justice. I know it's obviously a very geek-centric movie, so hopefully people will have fun reacting to that and reacting to the things we said. You can also follow us on Twitter if you want to directly interact with us. The show name is at Cinema Geekcast. Dan, your Twitter is?
At Movie Revolts.
Amanda?
Hard Candy Mandy, eyes, no lies.
And mine is at Optimus Solo. Other than that, stay tuned next week for our April preview and our first look back at the month of March to see how all of our predictions for March did. And then also stay tuned in April for some more of the video game series, as well as our first installment in the Miyazaki Spotlight. So a lot of stuff coming for the Cinema Geeks. Hopefully you'll be tuning in to all of those different things. But for now, that's it. And be sure to check in next week for another chance to listen to the Cinema Geeks.
I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away. No matter where you go, you know you're not alone. I'm only one call away. I'll be there to save the day. Superman got nothing on me. I'm only one call away.
Dude, Dan finally got Kevin to watch Up, and he didn't fucking cry.
Oh, you're heartless.
I didn't cry,
That's what I
but
said.
I loved the movie.
He was like on the inside. I was like,
I was like,
I
I'm
looked
crying
at
on
him.
the
I was like,
inside.
aren't you upset? I was like, I'm crying right now. Aren't you upset? He's like, on the inside. Like, dude, let it be on the
Sorry,
outside.
I need to get more in touch with my emotions. I'm the opposite of JD, but yeah, I love that. I wish I would have seen that before we did our animated movie countdown. So
Kevin could see a puppy on fire and not be crying about it.
Wally's next on the list. So then once we
Let's go
knock
watch
that
it right
out,
now.
so-
Actually.